Buddhist, yeah.
Now you're
Used to be a Buddhist, yes, right, Maharaj. So, when the consciousness ends, I mean, do we stop the mind, or then consciousness?
No,
I'm just trying to see whether that's where the confusion.
Buddhism is wrong. This is the first thing. Buddhism is a wrong idea. You see, so they're identifying consciousness with material elements, and they think by disassembling matter, then consciousness will stop. And they think that stoppage of existence, when existence ends completely, when there's nothing, that's liberation. But this is a wrong idea. It's an attractive idea for those who are frustrated, as I was explaining. Those who are too much agitated by the sense objects, who can't get, this agitation out of their minds, then they become inclined to this. This is the jnana mark, you see, this tendency to achieve impersonal liberation or voidistic liberation, because they're frustrated. Like when you become frustrated with something is bothering you again and again and again. First, you try to tolerate it, but it keeps bothering you, and then the next stage is to, you try to deal with it in some way, to pacify the thing. But if that still doesn't work, keeps bothering, then finally you become angry and you just want to destroy it. This is like violence in the household, like a parent bothered by a child. So first, should be kind to the child, but the child keeps disturbing. Then you start to say sharp words, sit down, don't. And the child keeps it up. The parent might become really angry and slap the child, do something, and then later he may feel bad about that. So in frustration makes us want to just rip ourselves out of this material world, or break our whole perception of the material world, break our relationship with it entirely, and just withdraw into some voidistic state where we cannot be bothered. But in fact, that happens anyway. That is a natural phase of material existence. That, for example, we die, and then the soul is implanted within the womb of another mother, and so for that time, before the next body is developed, we're in a kind of void state. No consciousness. There's no developed mind, even for thinking. You see, or at the end of at the time of Mahapralaya, the devastation of the universe, everything is drawn back into the body of Mahavishnu. It exists in his Achit Shakti. Achit Shakti means the energy of unconsciousness. Susupti, it's the coma state, so to speak. So there's no consciousness, not even dreams. And so everyone is merged into that for aeons and aeons of time. And this is what the Buddhists, this is what they're aspiring for. They just want to be drawn back into the body of Mahavishnu and lay there in total dreamless sleep. And they think that is liberation. And it's interesting, in Buddhism, there is in the Buddhism of Nepal, and also in Japan, also it was in China too, there is this type of Buddhism where they worship what they call Adi Buddha, the original Buddha. And it's sort of theistic, in the sense that they believe that there is an eternal form of the Buddha, and they worship him so that by his grace they will enter into shunya, into void. And the depiction of this Buddha, I read about this Buddha in a book, how he's depicted in Nepal, and he's shown to have many arms, and he lays down in sleep. And they say his dreams are the so-called reality of this world. Now Prabhupada says the same thing in his books about Mahavishnu. And you know Mahavishnu has 4 arms. And he's laying on the Mahatattva. And Prabhupada writes that he's dreaming, and his dreams are this reality. And this is the same thing in the Buddhist conception of the Adi Buddha. And they want by his grace to merge into the void. But that's happening anyway. This is my point. You see, you just have to wait. Wait for the Mahapralaya. And one can be in the void for millions and millions and millions of years, but eventually everything comes out again. So this is just another phase of material existence. So the Buddhist idea is wrong, you see. So don't go for that. Yes? Another question?
I have 2 small questions. And I'll start with an observation. Some people say that there are different properties of the soul, and that's why there's the 2 concepts of punyatma and duratma. Is there any truth in this is the first small question, in the actual existence of, I mean, does a duratma or a punyatma actually exist in terms of the spiritual level? And if it does, then we go to this next observation where they say that somebody can get a duratma on the original soul or on the original self. Now, if, let us say, for example, if we assume the truth that a person can get a duratma on you, or if you can get a duratma on yourself, then which soul is the real self?
Well, Srila Prabhupada uses the word duratma in a purport in Srimad Bhagavatam. He translates that as crooked soul. So, but atma, the word basically meaning self, also can be applied to the conditioned self too. Prabhupada says atma can mean soul, or it can mean mind, or it can mean body. So it is applicable to the material state of the individual. So this is how we understand this, that one may be a duratma, yes, but that is his material identity. And his own original spiritual identity, Jivera Swarupoy Nityara Krishna Das. Everyone's original spiritual identity is eternal servant of Krishna. But, and we come back to this point, we seem to always have to come back to this point, that relationship with Krishna is voluntary. It must be. It is one of free will. Love necessitates free will. There cannot be autocratic love. So, therefore, in our natural original relationship with Krishna, there is choice. And so there is a possibility of choosing to turn away from Krishna, while at the same time still being what one is, a servant of Krishna. But then instead of serving Krishna directly, we serve him indirectly. And then in the indirect service, we are taking on other identities, because we're thinking of ourselves as Lord and enjoyer. And this is how we become duratma. So now that duratma state is very deep. It actually does go down to the soul, in the sense it goes down to the will, the free will of that soul. As long as it is misused, then that soul is in a state of, we have to say ultimately it's a spiritual disease, because it cannot be solved by any material means. That problem. Even as we say, we've been talking about this, that even the soul desires liberation. If he is still Krishna Bahirmukh, if he's still not willing to surrender to Krishna, then he'll go through all the endeavors, austerities, purificatory processes of achieving liberation, only to achieve this impersonal Brahman liberation. You see, that's a kind of liberation, but there's still no relationship with Krishna. So, and Bhagavatam says, Aruya Krishna Parampadam Tada. One will eventually fall out of that Brahman, because it has no positive engagement for the soul. The soul, if we accept that the soul is a person, then a person must have engagement. And Brahman, this ocean of white light, clear light, they call it. So you can imagine if we shut you up in a room, a completely white room with a lot of brilliant lights shining on you. You see, how long could you sit in that room? Because you're a person. It's totally quiet, clean, no danger, no problems. You're completely safe. But you need to do something. You see, and just everywhere you look, you just see bright light, white. So sooner or later, you want to get out of there, you see, and do something else. So this is also liberation. But even this does not satisfy the Duratma, you see, because his will is not surrendered to the Lord. And so he'll come back. He remains a Duratma. He's achieved Brahman, but he comes back to the material world and again takes up materialistic activities. So this spiritual disease, yes, it has to be cured within the soul itself. And the cure is Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga this is what Srila Prabhupada always said, it changes the quality of our consciousness from material to spiritual.
Well, one curiosity out of this, one very curious question. In fact, I don't know, it might be a laughing question itself. That when this Duratma soul is taken out of the body when the body dies, is again does what we hear that in it floats, it doesn't get another body, or you say that because it is not submitting to the Lord, does it have a bad spiritual, like it tries to do bad to the living entities, like what we hear about bad spirits around us? Is it a reality? Like what you concluded right now? I'm just extending that.
Yeah, well, I think you're talking about something else, but it's related. Yes, there are bhutas and pretas. There are ghosts, these ghostly type of entities, and so one can, in this human life, by extremely ignorant activities, one can get a karma that leads to that type of existence. For example, suicide. If one becomes so sinful and at the same time so frustrated with life in this body that he kills himself deliberately, then the natural punishment by the material nature is because this human body, I've been trying to explain that the human body is given with a mission to perform devotional sacrifice to the Lord. So if one kills this human body, which is given for that mission, this is a rejection. This is, I don't want this body. So then material nature, Maya Devi, she says, oh, so you don't want a body, then you become a ghost. You live as a ghost without a body. This is your desire. So then, then one is, there is only the lingashara, subtle body, mental body left. And one floats, and because one has been in the dark mode of ignorance, then one is forced to, in that subtle body, stay at the crematorium or graveyard or house that he lived in before, or something like, or stay in the forest, haunt some place, and then that becomes known as ghostly. Like I was just reading on the internet the other day, the White House where the president lives has ghosts. It's become a kind of problem. There was one servant who worked in the White House, and he was telling about all the different ghosts in the different rooms.
But how that soul gets liberated, as you said.
Well, in time, because it is a kind of punishment. So, in time and by the grace of Lord Shiva, he has a name Bhutanath. He's the Lord of these entities. So he takes care of them. And he gives them bodies when the time is right. He allows them to take birth. So eventually they get back into those bodies. But it could take a long, long time. It depends on their degree of sinfulness. You had another question?
I was just making an observation that the answer that the Hansa Avatar gave for the problem that was posed by the four Kumaras was actually a Gyanvadi answer. Because he said, you should realize, you should know that you are not that. You are not the soul. I mean, you are not the one that, you are not the mind, you are not the material mind.
Yeah.
So even though in the Krishna consciousness movement we are actually going towards the bhakti marg, the answer that was given by Hansa Avatar was just a Gyan marg.
Well, not just Gyan marg, because Gyan and karma they are components of bhakti, but in a pure form. See, take the basic, just the raw definition of the word karma. It just means activity. You see, then furthermore we say it is activity of selfishness that leads to further reaction, birth under the within the samsara. But the basic word karma just means activity. So in Bhakti Yoga you have to be active. I mean, there's no question. So Prabhupada used this nice term, Krishna karma. He said we do karma, but it is only for Krishna. So he said our karma is Krishna karma. And it leads us to Krishna. The so to speak, the reaction of our work is that we go back to Krishna. And there is certainly Gyan. We have philosophy. And Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Purana uses this term, Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam. So it is the realized knowledge of the truth of Bhagavan. And so this Bhagavat philosophy, it embraces all the Vedic knowledge. You see, everything that's there in Vedas, you can take anything. You could take Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, for example, which the Shankarites, the Mayavadis, this is one of their big works, because it seems to them so impersonal. But from the Bhakti point of view, we're completely comfortable with that Upanishad. We understand it not as they do, but Gyan, also this detachment by knowledge, we also do that. But the conclusion of that detachment is that you become engaged in Krishna's service. So this is why Krishna is speaking to, you see, that instruction of Hamsa Avatar is within the context of a conversation between Krishna and his devotee Uddhava. So Krishna is mentioning that and then going further to say, because actually Uddhava does say, after all of Lord Krishna's instructions in that respect, Uddhava says, but I think that it is very difficult to remain fixed in this consciousness of detachment by knowledge. So can you speak further? And then in the next chapter the Lord starts to speak about bhakti. Yes. So you see, it's just a further step. It's not a contradiction of the realization of transcendental knowledge that detaches us from this world. It's more of a conclusion. You see? Then, having realized you have to do something. We have to act in this world. That's the point of Bhagavad Gita. So that is Bhakti Yoga. It is enlightened action. Yes.
This is a very general question which I had. I don't know, this is a very vague kind of thing. I don't know. This is regarding the Anugita, which I don't know whether about Anugita.
Anugita?
Yeah. About I think some other people from Shankaracharya quote this. where at last, after the Mahabharata war, Arjuna will ask Krishna to again repeat the Bhagavad Gita. So that time Krishna says the Supreme, at that particular time and circumstances, I was given that power from the Brahman itself to talk the truth. But the same power I am not able to tell you. I mean, does any of the acharyas in Vaishnava philosophy take this as a thing?
Well, there are specific Mayavadi types of texts. I am not familiar with this Anugita, so I don't like to comment on things that I'm not directly familiar with, because I don't know what I'm getting into. So, very often questions come, I heard that maybe, like this, and I generally say, well, if you can bring the book and show me, then I'd like to answer it.
Yeah, they say it's a part of Mahabharata, something like that.
Well, you see, in different sampradayas, in different schools, they have sometimes, added some chapters, of their own doctrine to standard works, and they try to, pass it off. Like there's one, Vashishta Ramayana, I think. There's a version of the Ramayana, which is promoting this Mayavadi idea. So that much I can say.
Just
Yes.
Comment on it. In Mahabharata it does say, but I don't know whether it's called Anugita or what, but Arjuna asked Lord Krishna to go over the teachings because he was involved in the war and he has forgotten. And Lord scolds him and gives a summary of what he has done. It's nothing different.
Mm-hmm.
The summary of the whole
Actually, he will not be able to, this is what I came to know, will not be able to have, he said that the Supreme Brahman through which I spoke at that particular time, I am not able to do it now. So he gave an elaborate thing about Sankhya Yoga, other kind of yogas, other than this. This is where I read, I don't know if anything is there.
Mahabharata just gives that, he gives a summary of it again. It doesn't mention anything about not being able to quote.
Okay.
anything.
I'm not going to comment on this. I'm sorry. I think maybe the two of you should talk. You see, anyway, for us the principle, sampradaya vihina me mantra na nishpala mataha. So the mantras of the Vedas, we must receive them through sampradaya in order for them to have pal, to actually have fruit. So this type of thing, so talking about some Anugita, which is for us asampradayic. There's no fruit, there's no use in it. And this sounds very much, to me like Mayavadi philosophy. So, yes.
What is the difference between material knowledge and spiritual knowledge?
Difference between material knowledge and spiritual knowledge, that's simple. The spiritual knowledge concludes in the spiritual identity of the living being and the relationship of that spiritual living being with the supreme spiritual being, God, Krishna. So, knowledge which culminates in that. In other words, spiritual knowledge sheds a light on our position here in the material world with the view of bringing us back to Krishna. So spiritual knowledge, since matter is anyway derived from spirit, so spiritual knowledge also includes matter in the sense of a proper understanding of matter. And material knowledge is knowledge which does not come to this conclusion. It's knowledge only within matter, and therefore it is necessarily misleading. You see, because material knowledge has no real basis then. Material knowledge can't really speak of the actual origin of things. Material knowledge just starts with, well, here we are, and now we can do this, we can do that, and never mind where we've come from or where we're going. That's not, people who are materialistic in their knowledge. They talk like that. Well, it doesn't matter. You see, it doesn't matter where the world came from. The point is, here we are, and we, can enjoy ourselves. Yes.
There is this objectivity versus subjectivity.
Mm-hmm.
It's also concerned with the spiritual knowledge versus material knowledge. First question. Because when you say
objectivity, subjectivity, in proper philosophical understanding, it's simple. Objective means that which is out there. Generally, it means that which can be measured. You see, physically measured. That's called objective. And subjective means that which is within us. So something like even pain is actually subjective, although it's real. See, objective, subjective doesn't mean real, not real. Pain is real, definitely real. If you hurt yourself, you should take care of it. You see, it's if you cut your hand, you should heal it. You should not say, "Oh, this is not real," because it's only subjective. Yeah, pain is subjective because you can't measure it. There's no painometer.
And what I'm talking about is this world that we are talking to. That's also reality. So in the sense that what I'm talking about is that this world is a material world which I'm really addressing to, and what I'm addressing to myself is the spiritual world. So isn't it is the concept of objectivity versus subjectivity related somewhere to the material and the spiritual thing? That's what I'm just trying to talk about.
Well, I don't think you need to bring in these things into the question of material spiritual world. That's
why I'm talking about this.
But you don't need to. You
know,
just need to talk about the material world spiritual. Never mind objectivity, subjectivity.
Okay, why I'm talking about is that when you explain that avoidance or the avoidist attitude.
Yes.
Like I was talking about escapist attitude is when you feel very angry with yourself, frustrated. Yes, absolutely. With the material world, and you want to shun it. Go to shun it totally, and just like the Buddhist, go to some Parvat and forget all the material nature. Just does the Krishna consciousness, which is the actual truth, actually talks about going with the material world, having the spiritual realism in the place.
I don't really follow your question. I'm sorry. I think you have to think about. Maybe you should write your question down for another time in clear language, because it's a little too vague for me. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So all right. So I want to stop now. Now tomorrow we're going to actually begin looking at the Vedic, we could say, technical description of the mind and its functions. I don't know how long that's going to take. I think it's going to take definitely more than just one session. But actually, we have the whole time I'm here through next week, so we have as much time as we need. So we're going to start to be looking at actually the construct of the mind itself, its origin and its parts and its functions. And then we will, in this examination, we will conclude with a very nice presentation of the psychology of Bhakti Yoga, the proper psychology of Bhakti Yoga, which I think you'll find very, very interesting and enlightening. So I thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.